Hello, my name is John Cooper. I'm the building official for the city of Snoqualmie, and I would like to welcome you to Virtual Citizens Academy. You will learn how your government works for you, and this is the building division portion. As stated, my name's John Cooper. I'm building official. A little bit of background is I've had 15 years in the construction trades, residential, multifamily, and light commercial construction. I've been the plans examiner and inspector for 21 years with the city of Snoqualmie. I'm certified as a building inspector, plans examiner, and fire inspector. I've been previous deputy building official for 14 years, and I took over the building official, fire code official position 6 years ago. I'd like to introduce our building inspector, Andy Schneider. He is a journeyman carpenter for 7 years, a general contractor for 23 years, building inspector for 15 years, and he is certified building inspector, plans examiner, plumbing inspector, and fire inspector. And Elise Treptow is our permit technician. She's responsible for taking in all the building permits, getting them entered into our tracking system, and routing all the permits to appropriate departments. Elise has been our permit technician for the last 6 years. She's been employed with the city for 15 years. She is certified permit technician, and she is the administrator for permitting software, Track-It, which keeps all our building permits tracking throughout the review and inspection process. And she is the liaison person for mybuildingpermit.com, which we use where homeowners or contractors can go to mybuildingpermit.com and be able to apply and get issued permits for certain items. The adopted codes for at this time is the 2015 codes. Right now, the 2018 codes will hopefully be adopted this coming February 1st. For commercial projects, they fall under the 2015 International Building Code. Residential is the 2015 International Residential Code. We have the International Fire Code. We have the International Fuel Gas Code, the International Mechanical Code, and the Uniform Plumbing Code. We do plan review. And the reason we do that is to be sure that the plans conform to fire life safety provisions of the code, to check that items to be installed have been approved for use, to be sure requirements for wind, earthquake, and snow loads are met in the structural design, to check that plumbing and heating systems have been properly planned to meet the requirements of the code. And when we do plan review, we used to do it by paper copy blueprints, and it got to the point where the retention of the blueprints started to take up a bunch of space within our office. So we started the plan review as electronic, where we receive all the plans as a PDF in landscape mode. And this is what the computer screen looks like with the software that I use to do the plan review. So during a plan review, I use a software called Glulam Beam, which allows me to make my comments right on the actual page of the blueprint, reference the code violation and code section, and what I will do is type the correction, cloud it, and then I will flatten it, which makes the comment stay there and nobody can delete it, and then that is sent back to the applicant. It takes all confusion out of my comments. Previously, we would do a comment letter, and then the designer or architect would call me and say, well, where does this apply? And by using this Glulam Beam software, it takes all confusion out of the process. And as stated before, the retention of the plans are required by state law, and by going electronically, we can save the approved plans to our software mainframe, And that way it cuts down on the reduction of paper being used, and in the future, if there's ever remodels or tenant improvements, I can go to our computer system and pull up the approved plans, send them via electronic email, and the architects and designers are very appreciative. By going electronic, for example, the New Mount Si High School, if they were to have to print all the plans and blueprints during the plan review process, it would cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars for printing, which saves the applicant and owner an immense amount of money. The only problem with doing electronic setbacks is this is what I look like at the end of a hard day of doing plan review. I know it's kind of funny looking, but I always use this slide to break up the monotony, and you know, if the crowd was here, we would all be laughing. So the next slide is, why is a building permit required? A building permit is required to ensure the life safety of your family, to protect your investment, to ensure the construction is compliant with the adopted codes, and the codes are minimum construction standards for buildings. At this time, I would like to introduce our building inspector, Andy Schneider, and he will take you through a few of the slides. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon. As John introduced me earlier, I'm Andy Schneider. I'm the field inspector for the city of Snoqualmie. I also do some of the plan review to take up some of his load. We're going to go through some of the items that I have seen in the field to give you an idea of things that can be encountered and reasons why we take permits out and get inspections. The first slide here is a disconnected fireplace flue that has been, the house is burned. It was done with no inspections. The contractors did not call for any, and sometime in the process, as the house settled and moved, the flue pipe became disconnected and started a fire up through the second floor in the attic of the house. This led to, of course, the fire department coming in to put the fire out. And in this case, this particular house also is lying in the floodway, and if this house had burned much further, it would have been condemned, and it would have had to been torn down, and the owner would not have been allowed to rebuild on that site due to FEMA regulations for residential construction in the floodways. Okay, this one here, the second one, it gives you an idea, you know, the trees love it when it's warm in the winter too, but what you're looking at is the chimney exhaust for a pellet stove that the cedar bush has grown up and surrounded upon. At some point, the exhaust from this pellet stove is going to dry up the limbs and leaves on that cedar bush, and it can possibly start a fire, which if someone was lucky, they caught it, they might catch the bush before the house caught. But being as the house is all wood and cedar sided, the chances of slowing this down before it caught the house on fire would be pretty slim. Okay, here's another example of a misinstalled chimney. This chimney is either a single wall stovepipe for a wood stove, or a L-type oil vent for oil burning stove, both of which have considerable clearance issues. They're not like what you would normally find with a gas vent that you could install within 1 inch of the combustible surfaces. As you can see here, the surface of the roof has already started to char. As things char and dry out, the ignition point drops significantly, and eventually this would catch fire and the house would go up in flames. And just for example, for clearances, if you were looking at a approved oil burning appliance with an L vent, the clearance would have to be at least 3 inches to the wood surface, up to 9 depending on the BTU output of the appliance. And if you were looking at a wood burning stove, the clearances would be anywhere between 9 inches up to as much as 18, depending on the capacity of the stove again. So once again, inspections that are missed because people think they can install these things on their own can cause a lot of heartache in the end. Okay, this one is not quite as dangerous an item. This is a gas vent on a probably a water heater or a furnace. What has happened here is whoever did the installation did not put the 3 connecting screws at the intersection between the adjustable slip joint and the roof termination piece. So during time, something has moved and wiggled and the sections have come apart. You're still looking at some charring in the wood and surfaces around the vent, which would in the same case be leading to lowering the ignition point and eventually starting a fire. And depending on where this vent is exhausting to, it could also be communicating with a side attic room for a bedroom or some other room, and could be contributing to the possibility of carbon monoxide poisoning to the residents of the house, which could cause death. Okay, here's a real common one, is the dryer vent maintenance issues. If people don't pay attention, your dryer vents can collect a lot of lint. It's pretty simple maintenance to have these things cleaned and vacuumed out, but as you can see in the picture, not everybody pays attention. The first thing you'll notice is that hey, how come this is taking me 2 or 3 times of drying the clothes to get things dry? That's a pretty good indication that it's time to go take a look. Probably a little late, but once again, and then this is also the reason that screens are not allowed at the termination point for your dryer exhaust, as that just speeds up the clogging and can create the fire hazard. Click. Okay. Now here's one that people look at every day. It's the water heater in your house. As it says in the header up here, you know, don't use this storage space as, you know, somewhere to put things on top of your water heater. Well, just to give you an idea, that tapered exhaust hood that's right on top of the water heater is a directly open space to the combustion gases from the gas burner. So if you put your hand up next to that, you could feel the heat and possibly burn yourself. That also, if you block that off, interferes with the drafting of air that pulls the exhaust gases up the flue and keeps the appliance from creating carbon monoxide in your house and possibly poisoning you. A couple other things that need to be watched with a water heater, especially a gas one, is the termination of the temperature pressure relief valve into the pipe that you see going off on the lower left of the screen is required to terminate to the outside of the house, and that piping run and termination is not allowed to go uphill. What you see here, the end of that pipe is starting to go uphill in the picture. That would trap stagnant water in the piping down to the temperature pressure relief valve, possibly causing bacterial contamination into your water supply. The other thing you need to pay attention to on the water heaters is around the bottom of the heater you're going to see some small ventilation holes. Do not put anything against them, or where, you know, store your boxes or put your laundry basket or whatever. Those holes are what the appliance needs to draw fresh air in for the combustion process. If we block that off, once again you're creating a carbon monoxide poisoning problem, all of which should be caught by a CO detector in your home, but all older homes, until they're retrofitted, do not have those in place. All right. Now we're going to take a look at a little bit of deck construction. Looking at this deck from afar, this is a pretty good looking deck, right? Well, we've got to look real close at all the issues with the way things are built. The items I see that are not covered here in this picture are there are more than 4 risers from the deck surface to the ground, and there is no graspable size handrail down the stairway, which means, you know, you don't have a good place to grab a hold of to go down those stairs. And yes, most of us with healthy hands could grab the 2x4 on the top and get our way down there, but we have to take in consideration people that do not have good ability to grasp those rails. That's why we have the sizings in place for the handrails to be installed. The other item here that you see is the landing surface at the bottom of the stairs. Although it steps onto your lawn, it's a great deal of side slope from side to side. Could be a slip and fall hazard, you're required to provide a level landing surface at the bottoms of the step. Okay, moving on. This is a picture of the underneath side of a deck. Looking on top, the thing may look pretty good, but what has been done down here is the footings that the posts are sitting on have not been buried deep enough into the hill structure, or the bases are not big enough to support the loadings, and things are starting to slide downhill with the surface layer of the soil, which is causing the post to become out of plumb. And as the thing continues to settle, you're going to find that the post connections and the beam connections will come apart, and you will end up with a deck collapse, possibly injuring the occupants that are having a good time on top of the deck. So things we look at below are the structure and how things are connected. I also do not see anything as that other than toenails that are connecting post to beam, but you know, they should have on the tops of these should be metal connections that provide a more positive contact. Okay, here's one that's kind of an oddball. We found a wire that was installed and drilled through the middle of a drain pipe. How that got there, only, you know, I'm pretty sure that nobody did it while the pipe was open. When I'm pretty sure that this was an outlet that was installed on one side of that wall or the other during a previous remodel, and the wire was drilled and fished through the wall. They thought they were hitting a stud, but what happens here is now we've created a hole in the drain which can leak slightly and also let sewer gases back into the stud bay. You could find rot issues, mold issues, and you know, that could be the reason why Grandma's old powder room is a little musty smelling, because something is not done correctly behind the wall. All right, here's a heating contractor that has cut through the middle of a floor joist, and to install his heat drop, he has not provided any headouts to repair the opening that he caused. These are things that can be easily repaired, but unless one of us catches the contractor doing things that are not allowed, chances are the contractor would say, that's close to the wall. Well, this will be fine. Well, he would just continue on, and later we would have a problem where the floor sags or something is starting to collapse. All right, this is an example of a dryer duct that is routed up through the attic. Somebody has used that flexible plastic piping to route the dryer exhaust, and they just put the end of it down towards an eave vent. Now, that flexible piping is only allowed for the connection between your dryer and the wall in an exposed area in your house, inside the walls and up through the attic. All the piping for dryer exhaust is required to be a smooth metal pipe with no protrusions into the pipe to prevent the lint from collecting. They're also required to be insulated so they do not sweat and condensate. And so this is why you're looking at what you see as black. That is black mold extending up the roof sheeting because the termination of that pipe doesn't have a proper place to get to the outside, and it is putting most of the moisture and heat up into the attic space and causing the roof sheeting to mold, which is eventually either going to have to be replaced or possibly cleaned if they catch it soon enough. Okay, and this one is a picture I found on myself when looking at a job site. What you're looking at is an expensive Glulam Beam that was intended to span a stair opening from the hanger connector on the right-hand side across to the base of the stairs. Well, somebody miscut this, and they figured they'd just fake it in there. They framed it in a little stud wall underneath it that's sitting on just a bit of the basement slab. Doesn't have any footings or bearing underneath it. And they butted the two pieces together with a little construction adhesive and helped or hoped that nobody would catch it. Not a impossible fix, but this one required the builders to go to a structural engineer and get an engineered design to put a splice on the back side of this beam up in the floor system and through bolted together, and at a large cost, which, you know, you've lost the several $100 beam, and then you had to buy the engineering and another chunk of beam to put this back together. So just a few items that we catch as we go through houses. Most of the time things are pretty simple, and not as extreme as what we showed you today, but these are just items that we have caught in the past causing these problems. All right, then I will turn this back to John to finish up. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Much appreciated. So it is our goal of the Building Division Department to review building permits and conduct inspections in a positive way, to be professional and courteous in all our activities, and always keep public safety in mind while doing our jobs. So thank you for attending the Citizens Academy for the Building Division. For more information about the Building Division, or if you have any questions whatsoever, as you can see from the slide, I have my email contact and contact number, and no question is too small. I was raised with the saying that the only stupid question is the question not asked. So feel free to contact us at any time, and hopefully in 2021 we can go back to our in-person Citizens Academy, and I look forward to seeing the citizens once again in City Hall. Thank you.